On March 19th, we received this very beautiful poem with an equally beautiful photo. And it struck me a certain way that day. And ever since then, knowing that I would be giving a BBC about this poem, my mind has changed 4,000 times, depending on the information that I have at any given moment. So I'm going to read you the poem, and then I'm going to share some of my changing thoughts on this. This is very much a work in progress, as I've been trying to nail my thoughts on this. This has been actually really difficult, because it depends on the reader reading the poem. So here we go. Here's the poem. And the people stayed home and read books and listened and rested and exercised and made art and played games and learned new ways of being and were still and listened more deeply. Some meditated, some prayed, some danced, some met their shadows. And the people began to think differently. And the people healed. And in the absence of people living in ignorant, dangerous, mindless, and heartless ways, the earth began to heal. And when the danger passed, and the people joined together again, they grieved their losses and made new choices and dreamed new images and created new ways to live and heal the earth fully as they had been healed. This is a poem by Kitty O'Meara. So it's very beautiful, right? As we're sitting here in this comfortable dining room, about to have a very beautiful meal, isolated as we are up on the top of 692 Country Lane. So that day, March 19th, seems quite a long time ago now, there were 234,000 confirmed cases of COVID-19 worldwide and 8,800 deaths. Today, there's 1,197,000 confirmed cases worldwide and 64,400 deaths. These are from reputable websites. So I'm going to address some of these lines, and just remember, this is a work in progress for me. I'm changing it moment by moment, so I think I'm best to stay with the script, and it's going to be probably hard to do because my mind keeps changing. The first line, and the people stayed home. So this is true for many. And for many others, this is not the case because they financially cannot afford to. This is a little snapshot of an article from the New York Times on April 3rd. It has been about 2 weeks since the Illinois governor ordered residents to stay at home, but nothing has changed about Adara Benjamin's responsibilities. She gets on a bus nearly every morning in Chicago, travels 20 miles round trip, some days to cook, clean, and shop for her clients who are older or who have health problems and make such tasks difficult for them to do. Ms. Benjamin knows the dangers, but she needs her job, which pays about $13 an hour. She also cannot imagine leaving her clients to fend for themselves. They become my family, she said. In cities across America, many lower-income workers continue to move around, while those who make more money are staying home and limiting their exposure to the coronavirus, according to smartphone data analyzed by the New York Times. Although people in all income groups are moving less than they did before the crisis, wealthier people are staying home the most, especially during the work week. Not only that, but in nearly every state, they began doing so days before the poor, giving them a head start on social distancing as the virus spread. So the next part of the poem. And read books, and listened and rested and exercised, and made art and played games and learned new ways of being and were still. So again, for those who are financially okay, upward to those who are affluent, what a beautiful opportunity to connect with one's family, to have the time to read, tell stories, do art, paint. There's been a lot of research over the last number of decades on how much time parents actually spend with their children. And those research pieces of information range from 7 minutes a day to 11 minutes a day to 34 minutes a day, depending on which research program you look at. That's parents speaking with their children. All of the parents who were surveyed in these research programs throughout the years felt regret and pain about this, of course, and they attributed this reality to the fact that both parents were needing to have full-time jobs, or wanted to have full-time jobs. So this good fortune that some of us have on the planet, the main point of my message today is this good fortune comes with a responsibility that we have to really own and act upon. And I think most people, not just spiritual practitioners, would agree with this. We have a tremendous responsibility right now. And with while we have the good circumstances, and I think spiritual practitioners, intellectually, I'll say it for myself, I know this can change in a heartbeat. But while we have it, we can shift our focus to doing an inventory, for example, so now I'm going to talk to you as a family, as an individual, as a community. What we can do right now with this good fortune is we can actually take an inventory, sit down with your family, your community, your partner, whoever, and have discussions, record who you feel concerned for, and then expand that concern to list others, perhaps others you would not previously have thought of, but now we have the time to. So you can think of the elderly neighbor down the street that screams at your kids and calls you every time they ride their bikes on her or his lawn. You can think of the homeless people that you see on your way to school or to work when you used to go. The new neighbors that arrived in your community a couple of years ago, maybe they're from Asia, Europe, or Africa, that you haven't had or made the time to connect with. Remember our slogan these days, what gets us off the hook for just about everything is, I'm too busy, I have no time. It's the modern mantra that I use too. I'm too busy, I have no time. But now some of us on the planet have the time. And then take an inventory of the skills and interests of every person in your family and discuss what each person might be able to do, given the current conditions, to reach out to others. For example, if you've got kids at home, this is a great time to teach the fine art of writing a real letter, pen and paper. I know you're going to meet with resistance and yes, buts, but there's a fine art to writing a letter. Write letters of appreciation that maybe in time you can deliver, to the cranky neighbor down the street, to the people who are at the till, at the bank, in the grocery store, but really taking the time to express gratitude. And then start taking a look around the house, the monastery, your bedroom. And as a family or as a person, an individual or a community member, see what you can happily give away. Start putting things in boxes. And once this stay-in-place request has eased up, then think of where you're going to take these things to people who you know are just going to absolutely fall in love with them the moment they see it. I know that years ago when my sister and I were packing up my parents' house, we got ruthless at some point because there was so much stuff, and how emotionally attached can you be to the salt and pepper shaker that you gave your parents for their 25th wedding anniversary that was really pretty ugly, but they said it was the most beautiful thing they'd ever seen in their life. So we would take these boxes of things to a place at the recycle place in the little town where they lived called the Shack. And after a while, word got around to people who go to that shack, watch out for that car. Beckers are coming. There'd be people waiting there. They wouldn't even look through the box. They'd just take the box and take it to their car. It was great. It gave us such a feeling of making other people happy. It helped with the grieving too, actually. It really helped with the grieving. And then as my years as an elementary school teacher, I was absolutely struck by the generosity. I taught a lot of kids who came from families that were struggling in all ways, including financial. They were poor. In fact, the one school I taught at was in the poorest neighborhood in Canada, in Edmonton, Alberta, which is the capital of the province, spewing oil and gas wealth. And here we are with kids who are absolutely below the poverty level with their family. And these are the kids who would bring, it's going to make me cry, the pennies for the UNICEF box at Easter, at Halloween. This box would be overflowing. It was the poor kids who were bringing. The middle class, upper middle class kids, not so much. And then when 9/11 happened, all these kids wanted to give their teddy bears away. So we figured out a way. There was this organization, must have been organized somewhere in New York, called Hugs Across America, where you could send your teddy bear. And these kids did that. And again, these are kids who don't have much. And you've got a teddy bear, that was like giving away, $5 million. And then get your family, you don't have to be Buddhist about thinking about His Holiness's teaching that he gives all the time. Everyone wants to be happy, no one wants to suffer. So ask your kids, what does this mean? Ask your siblings, ask your grandparents, ask everyone, what does this mean to you? And draw pictures. What does it mean? And then for those of us who can handle this right now, this is not something you would do with your kids, I don't think, maybe late teens. But start imagining what it would be like to be in unfortunate situations, and this is a Buddhist practice, So quite simply, what would it be like right this minute that we're one of the 10 million people in the United States alone who have lost their job in the last month? 10 million plus people have lost their job. Well, how do you pay the rent? How do you do online learning with your kids if you can't afford the Wi-Fi? What if you don't have a computer? There's so many what ifs. And to imagine what it would be like. Single parent, raising kids, trying to educate them. You're doing gig work, but the gig work went away. How do you get food on the table? So then the advice is, well, wash your hands. Sure, if you've got water. This is an article from the New York Times, I think it was somewhere around April 2nd. In northwestern Syria, where 1 million people who have fled the civil war are sheltering in muddy tent camps and abandoned buildings, the spread of the coronavirus could wreak untold disaster on a devastated region. Forget hand washing and social distancing. The preventative measures recommended by health authorities around the world. There is no running water in the camps, and up to 12 people live in the same tent. You want us to wash our hands? Asks Fadi Meser, the Idlib director for the Foundation for Relief and Development. Some people can't even wash their kids for a week. They're living outdoors. So the list goes on and on for people who are so impacted right now by the virus. The doctors and nurses on the front lines and their families, the idea of having time to sit back and reflect on how life can be different is temporarily not even a possibility. So the next, one of the other lines, and the people began to think differently. So for those of us who can, now is the time to write down our aspirations and how we want to transform our mind. What kind of person do you want to be during this crisis? Who do you want to be a support for? And actually, the situation that we're in as vulnerable children has kind of reminded us, and sometimes wrathfully, we're in cyclic existence. This is actually a bigger tragedy. What habitual patterns must we address and transform immediately? So, again, if you have the time, ask your children and grandchildren, nieces, nephews to dream with you about the kind of world that they want for others and themselves, and what can they do to be a contributing factor to this vision. And there's some advice from someone who's a psychologist, Dr. Tamburini. He says this: you have to talk to your children about what's going on right now. You cannot leave children with their fears. It is better to talk rather than avoid talking. We will return sooner or later to the life of before, or rather, it will no longer be the same as before, for many reasons, but also because we've discovered a kind of time to fill or to let flow by more slowly than usual with our children. that they will remember. So as aspiring bodhisattvas, let's continue to edit and revise our job description and make sure we leave no one out.